Have you ever stopped to feel the invisible weight the world imposes on you? Not the weight of bills, traffic, or responsibilities. I'm talking about something deeper, something that nests in the soul and whispers the most uncomfortable truth. That we are all in a rat race, chasing a ghost we call happiness. We run, we sweat, we conquer mountains, and when we reach the top, what do we find? An even greater emptiness, an arid desert that stretches as far as the eye can see. From the first cry in the cradle, we are thrown into an arena where pain is the constant, desire is the whip, and oblivion the final prize. John the Baptist cried out in the desert, and his voice still echoes, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand." Matthew 3:2. But what is this kingdom in a world where existence itself seems like a curse? Centuries ago, a solitary visionary named Arthur Schopenhauer unveiled this farce with brutal clarity. For him, life is not a gift, but a condemnation. Every breath is a shackle, every heartbeat, an echo of primordial pain. Pleasure, that ephemeral lightning flash, is merely the momentary truce from constant agony. His words resonate like a funeral bell. Human life oscillates, like a pendulum, back and forth, between pain and boredom. Everything we crave, the embrace of love, the gleam of gold, the applause of the crowd, are just vain attempts to fill the hole in the soul. If we achieve, boredom devours us. If we fail, frustration crushes us. And worst of all, in the end, the reaper of death, indifferent to our cries and triumphs, gathers us all. Solomon, the wise, already warned in Ecclesiastes 1:2. "Vanity of vanities," says the preacher. "Vanity of vanities, all is vanity." This isn't some dusty theory from ancient books. It's the script that unfolds every day before our eyes. Wars that don't cease, plagues that devour, multitudes who toil their entire lives for a morsel of bread. Suffering is not an accident, it is the weaving of existence itself. To ignore it is like closing your eyes to the impending storm. In this deep dive, we will strip away the illusion and face the essence of the human condition. We will discover how the spiral of desire consumes us, how nature is a stage indifferent to our tragedy, and how the latest science proves that unhappiness is not a deviation, but our fundamental programming. Are you ready to break the mirror of illusions? Think of a fish frantically swimming in an aquarium, bumping against the glass walls, searching for an exit that doesn't exist. If, for an instant, it finds a crack, a food tunnel, it feels a flash of satisfaction. But soon the emptiness of the aquarium pulls it back. This is the image of our existence, an incessant search for something that, once achieved, dissolves into smoke. Schopenhauer, like a dark prophet, revealed the cruelty of this dynamic. Desire is the essence of being, and suffering its manifestation. Everything that drives us, every yearning that consumes us, is born from an absence, a void that cries out for fulfillment. We seek wealth because our flesh feels deprived. We clamor for love because the soul groans in solitude. We chase fame because the fear of insignificance shackles us. Desire is the engine that moves us, but also the gallows that asphyxiates us. And the wicked is pregnant with iniquity, conceives trouble, and gives birth to lies. Psalm 7:14. Perhaps this lie is the very illusion that desire will bring us peace. Now, imagine that the miracle happens. You, by a stroke of fate or a titanic effort, obtain what you so dreamed of. The soulmate is in your arms, the empire has been built, glory embraces you. What follows? The ecstasy of conquest is a breath, a mirage that dissolves. The initial euphoria evaporates, and a new abyss opens. Quickly, another existential fissure demands to be filled. If before it was the car, now it's the mansion. If it was love, now it's blind devotion. And so the macabre dance begins again. Schopenhauer described this trap as a psychological cell. Man lives in a continuous oscillation between the pain of desire and the boredom of realization. Life, therefore, is a pendulum between affliction and emptiness. There is no rest. And the children of men, for the sake of your days, will neither repent of their evil ways nor of their deeds, that you may do them good. Jeremiah 4:22. We only need to look at the temples of modern idols to witness this truth. How many figures with incalculable fortunes, revered faces, and envied lives fall into the darkness of depression? The scriptures tell us the story of Solomon, the richest and wisest king of his time, who possessed everything a man could desire, but in the end lamented, and behold, all was vanity and a striving after wind, and there was nothing to be gained under the sun. Ecclesiastes 2:11. Celebrities who made millions laugh, but who behind the cameras surrendered to despair. Schopenhauer would not be surprised. For him, the pinnacle of wealth and fame are not shortcuts to bliss, but labyrinths to despair. When there is nothing left to desire, only the abyss remains. Wealth is like the salt of the earth. The more we eat, the thirstier we become. And if this vision already chills the soul, contemporary science only corroborates it. Our brain, that complex machine, is designed for eternal dissatisfaction. The reward system, mediated by dopamine, operates in a cruel way. The peak of pleasure is not in possession, but in pursuit. That's why the anticipation of a desire inflames us more than its realization. Once the object is achieved, the spark goes out, and a new yearning arises like a phoenix from the ashes. The result? An eternal just one more. That's why so many drown in addictions, gambling, substances, the endless flow of social media. The mirage of the next reward keeps us captive, like rats in an endless maze. Why do you spend your money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which does not satisfy? Isaiah 55:2. So, if life is a Russian roulette of frustration, how do we live? Schopenhauer's answer is as cold as it is logical. The only liberation is to reduce desire to its minimum expression. The less you yearn, the less you suffer. But is human beings forged in covetousness capable of such renunciation? Prepare yourself, for the veil will be lifted. In the next segment, we will explore the cruelty of nature itself and understand why this cosmos seems to have been carved for agony. If there is one truth that humanity stubbornly repudiates, it is this: the universe is indifferent. We like to sing hymns about a grand purpose, about a divine justice that balances the scales, about suffering that will germinate into reward. But the truth, raw and naked, is that existence operates under its own laws, and these laws were not written to console us. Schopenhauer, with his chilling vision, discerned this with crystal clarity. The world is a blind engine of pain and survival. Nature doesn't care about our smiles, our tears, or our dreams. Its only will, if we can attribute such a word, is the perpetuation of life. And life, as he so well articulated, is an inexhaustible river of affliction. And I saw all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all was vanity and a striving after wind. Ecclesiastes 1:14. Nature is always true and never good or evil. It is indifferent. From childhood, we are nourished with the poetry of the natural world, the blue of the firmament, the green of the fields, the majesty of the mountains. But this childlike innocence blinds us to the intrinsic brutality of existence. The forest, which seems like an Eden to us, is in fact a battlefield where predators tear apart prey, diseases corrode flesh, and cubs are devoured before they even learn to walk. Schopenhauer saw nature as a spectacle of horrors, where every creature struggles to breathe at the expense of another. For him, life is a ruthless game of survival, and what we call beauty is just a thin layer of varnish over the essential rottenness of the world. Let not your hearts be troubled, John 14:1, said the Master. But how can one not be troubled in the face of so much pain? If we wish to evaluate the measure of happiness of any being, we should not inquire about the pleasure it enjoys, but about the pain it experiences. Pleasure, in the end, is merely the temporary absence of pain. And upon closer examination, we see that pain is the very substratum of the world. If suffering were an accident, a tragic exception, perhaps there would be a thread of hope. But it is the rule. Every living being, at some point in its journey, will be crushed by the relentless weight of existence. Reflect on what it means to be human. From the first breath, we are fragile and dependent, at the mercy of hunger, cold, fear. We grow and are conditioned to an incessant search for status, wealth, acceptance, a chimera with no lasting reward. We age and we witness flesh wither, memory fade, loved faces disappear. And in the end, we die, often slowly, lonely, and excruciatingly. No living creature escapes this fate. Nature casts us into existence and then consumes us without mercy. God created them in his own image and likeness, Genesis 1:27. But why does this image carry so much affliction? If nature were just or benevolent, how would we explain the existence of atrocious evils? Why are innocents born to perish in extermination camps? Why do souls spend their entire lives imprisoned in paralyzed bodies, torn apart by incessant pain? The story of Lazarus, covered in sores and longing for crumbs, Luke 16:19-31, is a testament to the world's indifference, where pain is the daily reality for many. If the universe had an ounce of compassion, this would never happen. And we don't need to limit ourselves to humans. The animal kingdom is a nightmare of agony. Turtle hatchlings emerge only to be devoured before even touching the ocean. Wildebeests are torn apart alive by lions who know no other choice but to kill. Insects have their bodies parasitized, eaten from the inside out by larvae of other species. This is nature, not the verdant idyll of documentaries, but a machine of incessant suffering. Life is a contract that is never paid. If Schopenhauer was right about anything, it's that suffering is not a miscalculation of the system, it is the system. Modern biology endorses life is driven by the instinct of self-preservation, and this instinct in turn generates suffering. If creatures did not experience hunger, fear, pain, they simply would not fight to survive. If humans did not feel desire, anxiety, dissatisfaction, we would not seek food, reproduction, wealth, and the species would become extinct. Suffering is the mortar that keeps life in its perpetual motion. The fear of death compels us to fight to continue. The pain of desire keeps us moving. But there is a price. We are prisoners of this gear, unable to escape the cycle. And if nature doesn't shed a single tear for us, then what is left? What can we do in the face of this chilling indifference? Hold on. In the next block, we will uncover the lies humanity has constructed to escape this truth, and how every attempt to find meaning sinks us even deeper into the abyss of despair. If the truth were universally known, few would dare to remain on this stage. The world is suffering. Nature is a sphinx without compassion, and happiness, an illusion. But then, how do we proceed? How do billions of souls awaken each dawn, toil, love, plan, and move forward, as if life held some purpose? The answer is harsh: self-deception. Humanity persists because it embraces the chimera. We build comforting narratives, seductive ideologies, spiritual beliefs, dreams of progress, all to mask the harsh reality that we are entangled in a futile cycle of pain and frustration. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, Romans 12:2. But what is this mind if it refuses to see what is? From time immemorial, religion has been the supreme balm, the promise of paradise, of divine justice that transcends mortality, of an ethereal purpose, served as an anchor for the afflicted. But, from Schopenhauer's perspective, religion is no more than a necessary veil. The common man needs to believe that there is a hidden meaning in his pain, that redemption awaits him after death, because facing the reality would be unbearable. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all, Psalm 34:19. A promise that, for the philosopher, would be just a sweet illusion. But the truth is this: there is no watchful eye above us, no higher entity to count our virtues, no prize waiting at the end of the road. The pain we feel has no intrinsic purpose. It is merely an implacable consequence of existence. If an almighty and just God existed, why the random suffering? Why are innocents born condemned to pestilence or war? Why is human history a rosary of genocides, slavery, and misery? If God made this world, I wouldn't want to be that God, for the misery of the world would break my heart. When faith falters, contemporary society offers another chimera: progress. We have been indoctrinated to work ceaselessly, to conquer tirelessly, to build legacies. We are told that life acquires meaning by leaving our mark on time. But this is just another artifice to keep us captive. The truth: work is an elaborate form of distraction. We spend most of our ephemeral existence chasing money, promotions, recognition, and what's the reward? A retirement to await death. Human progress, in turn, is not a victory over affliction, it amplifies it. We develop technologies to extend life, only to spend more years battling illness and old age. We increase productivity only to be more exploited, more disposable. And even when we reach the pinnacle of our ambitions, boredom returns in its dark cloak, compelling us to seek the next goal. The life of man revolves around pain as the earth revolves around the sun. And then, the greatest of all illusions arises, love. We have been taught that love is the essence of existence, that finding our soulmate will bring us true bliss. But Schopenhauer dissected love in a different way, as a biological ploy. We love not by a divine spark, but because nature programmed us to do so. Love, for him, is a mere evolutionary mechanism to ensure the perpetuation of the species. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth, Genesis 9:1. The biological imperative masked as romance. We feel attraction, desire, passion, all because life yearns to replicate itself. But like any other yearning, love condemns us to suffering. If we are rejected, pain tears us apart. If we achieve what we seek, we quickly tire. If passion endures, we face jealousy, conflicts, crushing routine, disappointments, and even the happiest couples in the end are reaped by death. Love is strong as death, Song of Solomon 8:6. And perhaps that strength is the ability to drag us into the same abyss. Isn't it ironic that what we romanticize the most is also the most prolific source of torment? Modern neuroscience endorses Schopenhauer's intuition. Our mind is programmed to deceive itself. The human brain has specific circuits to obliterate painful truths. In the face of an unbearable reality, the mind activates chemical responses that distort it. This explains why we persist, even knowing that the end is inevitable. Dopamine offers us false hopes. Serotonin induces us to accept the unacceptable. The limbic system forces us to cling to things and people, even knowing that everything is transient. Illusion is not a flaw, it is the system itself. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately sick. Who can understand it? Jeremiah 17:9. And if all this is a cruel game, how do we respond? How to live, knowing that we are prisoners of a system of suffering and lies? Be prepared, for the abyss opens. In the next and final chapter, we will delve into the ultimate despair. The moment the farce crumbles and man understands that there is no escape, there comes a moment in existence when the world's noise silences. Distractions dissipate, promises vanish into thin air, and for a fleeting instant, the truth reveals itself, raw and naked. What remains? Only the void. Most of humanity avoids this threshold at all costs. They live immersed in activities, in entertainment, running back and forth, consuming information, drowning in social media, addictions, work, relationships, anything not to face the abyss that lies behind the facade of existence. But sooner or later, silence erupts. Whether in the solitude of a dark room, in the funeral procession of a loved one, or in the chilling perception that no matter how hard we try, time is a merciless devourer of everything. Man is a metaphysical animal, and when he encounters the vacuity of existence, his first reaction is despair. For some, this epiphany strikes in childhood. Children who, looking at their parents, suddenly perceive the inevitability of death. Young people who, at the peak of their vitality, feel the ticking of the clock, each second a step towards the end. Adults who, after climbing the mountains of ambition, feel a deeper emptiness than they ever imagined. When the illusion shatters, what emerges? The certainty of the transience of everything, the shock of the insignificance of our achievements, the anguish of a prison from which no one escapes. Schopenhauer called this the awakening of tragic consciousness. It is the instant when the mind perceives futility, that all battles were in vain, that happiness is just a brief respite between torments. Life is like a poorly written play, whose final act is always death. A joyful heart makes a cheerful face, but by sorrow of heart the spirit is broken. Proverbs 15:13. By scrutinizing the annals of history, the denial of this truth becomes unsustainable. The 20th century, a bloody stage of genocides, wars, and atomic bombs. Millions perished in the name of flags that were soon forgotten. Empires rose and fell, leaving only ruins. And even the victors, Napoleon, a sick exile. Caesar, stabbed by his own. Kings and emperors accumulated riches that, in the end, were inherited by strangers. Life always has the last laugh. Today, the scenario is no different. Souls spend years on end studying for careers they hate, working to exhaustion to acquire goods they will not have time to enjoy, building families that will one day fall apart without a trace. Time is an insatiable devourer. Life is a loan paid back with exorbitant interest. For what does man gain by all the toil and striving of heart with which he toils under the sun? Ecclesiastes 2:22. Many cannot bear the burden of this truth. Upon understanding that existence is a dead end, they surrender to despair, depression, anxiety, the final and fatal step of suicide. All these are responses to the absurdity of life. And if civilization keeps us busy so that we don't reflect on this, what happens when someone allows themselves to face the void? The examples are countless. Brilliant minds like Ernest Hemingway and Virginia Woolf, who discerned the truth and chose to withdraw from the game. Philosophers like Kurt Gödel, who after a life of relentless logic, preferred death by starvation to continued existence. Even ordinary people who, one day, simply find no more reason to get out of bed. The void consumes, consciousness destroys, and there is no refuge. For the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing, and they have no more reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. Ecclesiastes 9:5. In the face of this desolation, some philosophies have tried to offer a palliative. Nietzsche proposed that we should forge our own meaning. Camus spoke of embracing the absurd and living despite the absence of purpose. But for Schopenhauer, all this was just another deception. The only genuine way out, according to him, is the radical reduction of our participation in the game of life. To desire nothing, to expect nothing, to live as sparsely as possible, like a hermit who abandons all illusions and accepts nothingness. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Matthew 5:3. Perhaps this poverty of spirit is the liberation from desire. But who in fact can achieve such a state? If life is pain and there is no escape, then what does science reveal to us? Attention. In the ultimate unfolding, we will discover how the most recent studies on mind and behavior confirm. Unhappiness is not an accident. It is the natural state of the human being. Pain is not a mistake. It is not an accident. It is not a flaw in the code. It is the code itself. Human beings were intrinsically designed to suffer, not by a malevolent creator, not by divine punishment, but by the relentless logic of existence itself. Suffering is not a marginal detail of life. It is the fuel that keeps it moving. Schopenhauer, with his foresight ahead of his time, already knew this, long before modern science provided the evidence. For him, man is a slave chained to his desires, condemned to an eternal and cyclical frustration. What he perhaps didn't know is that our own brain was sculpted by evolution to keep us in a state of perpetual dissatisfaction. The vast majority of people live in the belief that they can choose happiness, that they can rewrite their destiny, that a concentrated effort, a positive thought, a new horizon, and everything will harmonize. But modern neuroscience shatters this cruel illusion. The human mind is governed by unconscious abysses, and happiness was never an evolutionary priority. Your brain was not designed to make you happy. It was shaped for survival. This implies that you will always feel fear, because fear keeps you alert to dangers. You will always desire more than you possess, because desire ensures that you continue the hunt for essential resources. You will never be fully satisfied, because full satisfaction induces stagnation, inertia. The eyes of covetousness are insatiable. Proverbs 27:20. The concept of happiness is a biological fraud, a mere evolutionary trick. Pleasure exists only as a temporary spark, a bait to keep you in the game. But, in the blink of an eye, it dissipates and emptiness returns in its fullness. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter of pleasure, is not released when you finally achieve something, but rather when you are actively pursuing that something. That's why the anticipation of a desire is more intoxicating than its realization. When you finally obtain what you crave, the brain, with its relentless cruelty, simply diminishes the reward and instigates a new desire. Life keeps you eternally hungry. You desire and do not have. You murder and covet and cannot obtain. James 4:2. If that weren't enough to chill the soul, the situation worsens. The human brain not only prevents us from achieving bliss, it actively torments us. Evolutionary psychology reveals that we are programmed to focus on the negative. This mechanism, known as negativity bias, causes bad experiences to be engraved with much greater intensity than good ones. In other words, an offense hurts more deeply than a compliment comforts. A loss causes an overwhelming emotional impact, disproportionate to a gain of similar magnitude. The fear of failure is an insurmountable mountain, while the joy of success is an ephemeral hill. This made sense in primitive times. Our ancestors needed to be constantly vigilant to dangers. A single mistake could mean death. But in the complex tapestry of the modern world, this mechanism has become an unbearable burden. We live in a state of constant alert, anxious, distressed, looking for problems where perhaps none exist. Affliction does not come from the dust, nor does trouble sprout from the ground. Job 5:6. Pain is not a deviation, it is inherent, and not to mention self-awareness, that singular curse of human beings. While an animal lives immersed in the present, we torment ourselves with the echoes of the past and anguish over the shadows of the future. Schopenhauer, with his dark insight, already foresaw, man is the only animal that feels pain twice, when it happens and when he anticipates it. But the greatest of human tragedies is another. We are condemned to think. Self-awareness, which so many celebrate as our highest virtue, is also our greatest executioner. An animal feels pain and then forgets it. A human being reopens the wound countless times, recounting failures, dwelling on mistakes, feeding fears. And how do we deal with this internal torment? With distractions. Work, love, entertainment. Everything serves to keep us away from ourselves, away from the truth. But at the end of the day, when solitude embraces us, the truth returns. Nothing can fill the void. If all this weren't devastating enough, the final blow is yet to come. Because in the end, no matter what we do, we will be stripped of everything. The brain that tormented us for an entire life one day simply begins to fail. We lose memories, abilities, our very identity. The machine that afflicted us slowly falls apart, leaving us in a state of absolute fragility before discarding us. Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, neurodegenerative diseases. All this is irrefutable proof that the mind we value so much is nothing more than a piece of flesh with an expiration date. Death is not just a possibility, it is the inevitability, and in the end, it is the only certainty. For what happens to the children of man and what happens to the beasts is the same. As one dies, so dies the other. They all have the same breath, and man has no advantage over the beasts, for all is vanity. Ecclesiastes 3:19. If Schopenhauer was right, if modern science confirms him, if there is no way out, what is left for us? The answer is brutally simple: nothing. You can try to deceive yourself, as most do. Build sandcastles of artificial goals, seek ghosts of happiness, pretend there is a purpose. Or you can finally accept the inevitable and simply witness the spectacle of existence without getting entangled in its illusions. The truth is that life never cared about your opinions of it. And you? Will you continue to enact the farce that everything is fine? Or will you have the courage to finally embrace the absurd? The only redemption, for Schopenhauer, is the denial of desire. And so, we return to the starting point. Life is hell, and then you die. Life is a chimera. Have you ever felt the veil tear? The world has woven a web of lies for you since birth, fed you with empty promises, inflated you with futile hopes. And in the end, the path converges to a single, inevitable destiny. But here on this channel, we do not bow to hypocrisy. We do not veil the absurdity of existence. We do not sell you painkillers for the soul. If you have come this far, it is because the whisper of truth already echoes within you, and we are here to unravel it together. And now, the burning question. Will you continue as an automaton, or will you delve into the depths of reality, unafraid of what you will find? Become a channel member and access a sanctuary of forbidden knowledge, discussions that tear the veil, analyses that unravel the matrix, a community that refuses to feed on illusions. If you feel you don't belong in this forced optimism circus, this is your place. Support with a super thanks. Show that you value truth in a world that longs to distract and numb you. This channel exists to remind you of what truly matters, understanding reality as it is, not as they would like it to be. The choice is simple. Will you keep pretending everything is fine, or will you join us to face the truth head-on? The decision is yours. Be a member, use super thanks, or remain in the lie.